Welcome back to Uncle Form Podcast, man. We here.
We here. The most wonderful time of the year, baby.
Bruh, it is December 12th, and the high was 54 today. Sign me up for this. Like, I'm cool with this, man. This is my kind of weather.
I agree, man. We both wearing short sleeve shirts right now. I didn't have to buy a new jacket so far this year.
I swear. Hey, we in here, man.
Still using my same jacket from last year because it ain't really been cold like that.
Facts. So if you listening in the South, then you know where it is, man. If you're listening in the North, man, hey, we appreciate y'all too. Y'all probably just a little bit colder than we are. So it is where it is. Yeah, y'all chose to live there. I would never live there. So I'm just throwing that out there.
That's right. But speaking of the North, I do want to shout out the Philadelphia Eagles, man. We 12-1. You know, we predicted at the beginning of the year. So far, we've been right dead on. Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills are leading the NFL, NFC, AFC. And shout out to Jalen Hurts, man. 10 touchdowns so far in the season. I'm an Eagles fan for everybody out there.
I'm pretty sure he got more than 10 touchdowns on the season. I'm just throwing it out there.
He got 10 just this weekend, my guy. 10.
What are you talking about?
10 touchdowns, 10 rushing. Okay. Rushing touchdown. He ran.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you. No, my bad. 10 rushing touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? So he's killing it right now. And the Cowboys are actually way better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be trash. So I do apologize to all the Cowboy fans out there. Y'all having a good year, but we Super Bowl bound, baby. Eagle Nation, fly Eagles, fly.
Hey, that's real. That's real, man.
That's that on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I support that, man. And you know, like, I mean, obviously, like, the Cowboys are doing well. And you've already apologized, but like, I wanna be just as humble as you. So, in the famous words of Conor McGregor, I like to take this opportunity to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Hey, sometimes it be like that, man. Can't win them all.
Hey, y'all gonna have to prove it to me. Y'all still have to prove it to me. But speaking of sports, man, hey, real quick, man, I just want to plug my nonprofit real quick, if that's cool. So long story short, I started a nonprofit, something that I've been doing for a long time, but now I'm expanded to other sports. And man, I'm just excited to see what 612 Sports is going to do, what God's going to do through it, and just the ways that we can serve the city of Memphis and the whole metro area. So if you want to get more information about that, get at me. I'm not going to spam this podcast with all that, but if you want to get more information about it, get at me, though.
Yeah, man. Congratulations, man. Congratulations. You working hard out here trying to make a difference, bro. One day at a time, one organization at a time, one kid at a time. We see.
Facts. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You got a shout out, don't you? Another shout out besides the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. We got one more shout out, man. I want to shout out to my boy, Trey Willis. Trey Willis is a basketball player in his own right, but I saw him this weekend, man, and hadn't seen that dude since 2018 or something. You know, he came out of nowhere. Said he listened to the podcast. So Trey, we just want to shout you out, man. We see you, brother, and your beautiful family as well, man. Thank you for listening. Salute.
Yeah, man. Trey, one of them goats, man. I was actually at Stephen Moden's house last Friday, and we were talking about Abbott Elementary. Have you seen Abbott Elementary?
Every time I try to look at it, so I get busy. I haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's a character on there played by the dude who played Chris, and Everybody Hates Chris. And Steven said that. Hey, Steven's words, not mine. Steven said that dude remind him of Trey Willis. So hey, Trey, I'm just saying. I don't know if you've seen it, but we'd like for you to confirm or deny. But with that being said, man, if you do listen to the podcast, man, let us know. We've heard of several people who listen to the podcast that we wouldn't even think y'all listen to it. So let us know, man. We'll give y'all a shout out too. And also, it's just always good encouragement to know that people listening and like people that we know are listening versus strangers. Like, we love y'all, strangers. Don't get it twisted. I think we're the number 2 religious podcast in Mali. Why that is, I don't know. But we are the number 2 religious podcast in Mali, man. We appreciate y'all folks, man.
And we talking about Mali, Africa, not Percocet, right?
We are talking about Mali, Percocet. I'm just kidding. We are talking about Mali and Africa. So yeah, man.
Hey.
Nah, it's super dope though, for real. To see that, to see like people who are listening in all kind of places, man. We appreciate y'all, and man, keep doing it. But also let us know if you're listening. Hit us up on social media. Tell us in person, man. It's always good to hear, and it's always good to hear y'all's perspective on the podcast too. Shout out to my guy Doug. Hold on, he's been listening for a very, very long time. So appreciate you, Doug. I know you listen to it on two times speed, but hey, appreciate it.
You sounded like chipmunks on that joint.
Hey, especially me, bro. It's over. Yeah. So yeah, man. But let's go get into this topic today. Let's go ahead and jump into it, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. So I feel like this year, the conversation has come up as to, are things entitled or are things justified? Are feelings entitled or are feelings justified? Are decisions entitled or are feelings justified? And man, we want to talk about a few examples of like where that may be the case. The most prevalent, or one of the most prevalent examples, is Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, prime. You know, Coach, he calls himself Prime, Coach Prime, money. Yeah. He calls himself all that. It's only one Deion according to Deion. So Deion Sanders was coach. He was, first of all, if you don't know, he is a legend in football. He was a cornerback. He played for the Cowboys. He played for the Falcons. He played for a few other teams, but just like a shutdown cornerback, and he did everything with style. Everything he did it with style. He always had the jewelry. He always had the cars. He always had everything that you think of when you think of a prototypical athlete. Think about him and put it on steroids. That's who Deion Sanders was. And even in his retirement, he still managed to make us feel like he was a personification of it. Yeah. When you just got the it factor, you got it. So this dude was coaching at his son's high school football team. He was coaching there, and he was an offensive coordinator, I think. And he ended up getting the opportunity to coach at Jackson State. For those who don't know, Jackson State is a historically black college. It is one of, in my opinion, like one of the top tier schools in the SWAC. And I say that because I come from a Jackson State family. So if you feel differently, you are wrong, and I don't know how to make you right. But with that being said, he goes to Jackson State, and he says that God sent him to Jackson State, basically. He says that God sent him to Jackson State, and that God sent him to Jackson State to basically give some notoriety to HBCUs, and put forth a blueprint essentially to where it can be replicated and copied, and HBCUs would be showcased and put on platforms like never before. And I mean, my interpretation of what he said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but my interpretation of what he said was kind of that he wanted to create something that was sustainable. Something that was sustainable to like continue to show the growth in HBCUs. Because there used to be a day when the top football players went to HBCUs. Steve McNair went to HBCU. Walter Payton went to HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was very, very common for the top athletes in the country to go to HBCUs. And my interpretation of what he said was that he was trying to make that happen again. I agree. And in that, do you think I said anything wrong so far? Anything that you would add to what I'm saying so far?
No, I feel like you're going on the right path. Everything you said so far is correct. I do want to add that at the beginning of going to Jackson State, he was asked if he were given an offer from a, what do they call it? Big Five or
Power Five.
A Power Five school. Would he consider it? He was like, yeah, I would consider it. So he did say that out the gate as well.
Well, that was 2022. That was this year.
That was this year? I thought that was when he first started.
That was a 60 Minutes interview, and that was this year, as far as I know.
Okay, but I stand corrected.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. If I could easily, it wouldn't be the first time I'd be wrong in life.
No, it's all good.
But I think that was from this year though. But anywho, he goes to Jackson State. He gets them a deal with Under Armour. So they end up getting more uniforms than almost any other team in the country outside of Oregon. That's important because the founder of Nike went to Oregon. So like that's why Oregon gets so many uniforms. That's why they so swagged out. But through Deion being Deion, through Deion having connections and so on and so forth, he gets that deal with Under Armour. So they're getting all these helmets, they're getting all these jerseys. Michael Strahan, former football player, is giving them suits to wear to games with Jackson State emblems inside the suits and stuff like that. Everybody's pouring in. You're starting to see every weekend somebody famous is coming to campus and so on and so forth.
Just showing the games on networks that would normally not show them.
Yeah. And he was at Jackson State for 3 years, and in those 3 years, he lost 5 games. And in the midst of that, he got the number 1, or at least a top 5 player in the country to commit to Jackson State. Mm-hmm. He got Travis Hunter to flip from Florida State to Jackson State.
That's right.
That was a huge deal. That hadn't happened like basically in my lifetime.
Right.
In your lifetime as well, Ryan, where that happens. So like that's happening. Like people are really starting to like boost up HBCUs and stuff like that. A kid flips from Georgia, a JUCO kid flips from Georgia to Jackson State. So it's starting to happen. Everybody's starting to see this happen, so on and so forth. They beating the brakes off folks at this point. They're not losing nobody. They cocky with it. They basically just doing all that. And Deion is promoting Deion, and also promoting, HBCUs and whatnot, but ultimately Deion.
Right.
And, they're winning, so on and so forth. And it was always assumed that he would leave. At least I told my family that they didn't want to listen to me because they big time Jackson State fans. But like the man was making $300,000 a year. And it's important to mention that while he was there, the water was not working in Jackson a lot of the time. So he didn't have, what kind of millionaire wants to be in a place that doesn't have working water, right? And he's also making $300,000 a year, and he's giving half of his salary to improve things that are going on in the actual school.
Yeah.
So
he's pouring his money back into
and more so pouring it back into like the athletic program, I should say, not necessarily the school. But through Deion being Deion, through Deion making Jackson State a spectacle, he's bringing in tons of money to the university, tons of money to the city, tons of money to the athletic program, and tons of money to HBCUs in general, because he's selling out even when they are not at home. So away games are selling out, so on and so forth. Everybody's traveling, all this, so on and so forth, and it's looking great. And then it comes to the climax of it all, in my opinion, was when College Game Day came to Jackson State. College Game Day came to Jackson State. College Game Day is the biggest sporting event every single week. Every Saturday morning. Everybody looks forward to it. Every university wants to have the opportunity to have College Game Day come to their university. And it's just dope. Like most schools don't have College Game Day come to their campus. And thanks to Deion, they were able to get that. And they end up playing in the SWAC championship. And then the news comes out that he is leaving for Colorado. Colorado. So he's leaving for, I think it's Colorado University or University of Colorado. We're gonna say University of Colorado.
But nobody knows, bro. Nobody knows.
Yeah. It's in Boulder, Colorado. And if you knew Deion, I could say I never predicted him going to Boulder, Colorado. Thought he'd go to like USF, Cincinnati, or something like that. Cincinnati's a good stepping job. And he leaves. He ultimately leaves. And people, Jackson State alone, Black people in general, not in general, but a lot of Black people felt as if he should have stayed because he didn't fulfill his promise. They felt like they basically got pimped by the crooked pastor who goes there to talk about God, talks about how God's called him to be there, but then once a new job comes, once a new opportunity comes, he leaves.
Yeah.
People feel like not only is he leaving, but he's also taking his son, who's a starting quarterback, and he's taking that 5-star cornerback with him, and he's taking other players with him.
Yeah.
And in the snap of a finger,
right,
it felt like everything that he did no longer mattered, and also was no longer sustainable because it was all primarily due to Deion and his brand being there more so than uplifting HBCUs.
Right.
Anything you want to add to it, or anything you disagree with thus far?
Man, you're doing a perfect job of narrating this story, bro. I'm just up here listening.
Cool. So that happens. And they asked him about doing a press conference. They asked him about that, and it was kind of funny. He said, "I don't know if y'all recognize, but I am Black. So how can I leave something that I am?" So he says that. And then he follows with, "His calling is not a destination." His calling is not a destination. His words, not mine.
I know.
So, so he says his calling is not a destination. He said that his calling is ultimately to be obedient to God, and to impact the lives of young men, period. And 60-70% of the locker room in Colorado is Black, according to Deion. So that's kind of what he said, and that's kind of what he said leading up to that. And of course, there's backlash, and people are saying this. Now, actually, we'll get to that. We'll get to that on the back end.
Okay,
but
the question
these are kind of the arguments here. So, like, one side is saying that, like, you didn't complete what you said you were going to do. You didn't fully fulfill all the promises that you made, and you left as soon as you could get an opportunity. In a better analogy, somebody from work said that one of my coworkers, she said that and she's a Jackson State alum. That's important to mention. Always wearing Jackson State apparel and stuff like that. She said it felt like I, as a woman, I took a chance on somebody who nobody else would take a chance on. I got his credit together. I got him interviews for good jobs. I updated his resume. I put everything together for him. He was able to get a good job. And the second he got a promotion, and the second somebody who looked better than me whistled at him, he left me for.
That's how she felt, huh?
Yeah, that's how she felt. She said that's kind of how it was. And then
do you know if she listened to the podcast?
She does not listen to the podcast as far as I know.
Okay, because that
I'm going to send this episode to her. So whatever you got to say, yeah, just go ahead, drop that.
Okay, I ain't gonna say nothing bad about it, but I disagree. Mm-hmm. That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but ultimately, like, the question is, like, is this justified for people from Jackson State to feel this way? Let's do Jackson State first. So people from Jackson State, like, is this a sense of entitlement, or are their feelings justified?
Okay, so I feel like this is a very nuanced conversation. Like you said, people in Jackson State are going to have way more bias in the way that they feel, or maybe not the word isn't bias, is bias. Maybe that's not the word, but they're definitely going to have a more, visceral response to him leaving. Mm-hmm. And it may cause them to have, like, not be looking at things objectively. I will say this, Deion, when you say that God told you to do something, God called me here, this is my purpose from God, that kind of language is not good to utilize in order to rally people to your cause, because now it does make it seem like you're being that church pastor scammer who's like, God told me to tell everybody in the church to give $1,000 or whatever.
To the new building fund. Or to the building renovation fund. Yeah. Yeah.
And then once everybody gives $1,000, the pastor spends it on a new car or something, So I think it's never a good look to just be saying, God told me, God called me. I feel like that was hurtful to him. That harmed him in the end to be using that kind of language. But he's a Black man from the South, bro. Like, we all know Black men and older Black men, 40s, 50s. Everything is like, I was flying on a plane and that plane started shaking, and then, I cried out to God, and gosh, held that plane together. They use that kind of language in a way that's not necessarily supposed to be literal. So I understand the cultural context of where Deion comes from as a Black older man, but I will say that still hurt him to use that, because now you're leaving and you're saying, well, God now is telling me to do something else. And it's like, hey, bro,
right? Like,
how about let's just take God's name out of it, because, so I will, in that way, I will feel like Deion did hurt himself on that. Now,
let's say this too. I just want to add this too, because I forgot to add this. He was allegedly robbed twice, or things were stolen from him twice when he was in Jackson over those 3 years. So okay. I'm just putting that in there.
He was burglarized.
Yep, burglarized.
Like gunpoint on that.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. That's the language I'm looking for.
Gotcha. And yeah, so I think, man, when it comes to, like, business is still business, bro. Deion has already declared, I believe, some years ago that his dream job is Florida State. Like, I believe he said that years ago. And, the man does have a right to make business decisions. And I think that the problem is people have this, like, sometimes in the Black community, we have this, like, belief in, like, we have like a savior complex sometimes. Like, we're used to being so oppressed that we looking for a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or, a voice to come up, or Jesse Jackson to step up and, like, kind of save us from the issues that we're having. And I do feel like if we're not careful, people will start putting burdens on Deion Sanders to, in a one man kind of way, raise HBCUs up out of the obscurity that they've been in as far as the sports world is concerned. And I don't think that's fair. Deion did what he said he was going to do. He said that he was going to spark something. He wanted to lay a foundation for something. The language that he was using sounded like, I want to start something that's going to, like, grow and grow and grow. And I think he did start it. I mean, he definitely started something. I just think for people to just brush off all of the work he did, all of the money he donated, all of the kids that he mentored and poured into, because he's leaving, they're acting like he didn't do none of that. That's not fair. That's not right. You know what I'm saying? That's wrong to ignore all that man's work because he's leaving. So, I can understand the frustration from Jackson State alum and students, but what we're not going to do is sit up here and act like Deion is a sellout, because he's definitely not a sellout. Like,
and I think it comes down to this too. Like, let's be honest for a second. At Jackson State, he was making $300,000 a year, and I think he got like a percentage of ticket sales, right? So like, and like they were selling out every game, so like that added up to some capacity. Colorado is paying him $5 million a year. Now, with that being said, it's important to mention. It's super, super, super important to mention that in the press conference, the athletic director said they don't have all the money, but they're gonna find out how they're gonna get it. So like, hey,
and they are,
but they haven't yet. So like, hey, I'm not signing them. Yeah, I'm not signing them dotted lines. I know that much. But anywho, so like, I do think that, like, it's nuanced, like you said, right? Like, I think that people can be justified in feeling, they can be justified in feeling like he didn't fulfill his promises. Because like I said, like, I still think that most everything that was done was built around the brand of Deion. And when you build something around the brand of yourself and you leave, then like, that's not sustainable. So like, all the things we talked about, like, I mean, they may not even like keep the Under Armour deal. Under Armour has like very little to gain from like allowing them to keep that out and whatnot. They're definitely not going to still be getting 5-star and 4-star players. Tennessee State, they got Eddie George, a Hall of Fame football player as their coach, and they're not doing these same things. They're not doing the same things. And I mean, he changed a lot of tradition too. Like, I got family who comes to Memphis every year for the Jackson State versus Tennessee State game, which is known as the Southern Heritage Classic. He pulled out of that. Yeah. He pulled out of that after this year.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, and maybe it'll be a better financial move in the long run. I think it will be. But with that being said, like, he still made some pretty big changes, some pretty significant changes, and like, he don't really got to foot the bill. I go to a school called Lester Prep. We have won 3 state championships in basketball in the last 3-4 years. And like, Penny Hardaway was coaching there before he coached at East, which was before he coached at Memphis. University of Memphis. Yeah. So like, it's got a very rich tradition, but it's also a tradition of like beating the brakes off some teams.
Yeah, it is.
This year, like, the coach left. It's a new coach, and we losing, and people happy to whoop us. I'm not coaching there, by the way. I coach the girls. We doing great. But anyway, the boys are losing, and people getting their get back right now.
They get back.
So like, I feel like in the next few years, like, Jackson State gonna get their get back, and Deion not gonna have nothing to do with the get back getting got. You know what I'm saying? So So I do think that it's a nuanced conversation, and ultimately, that I think that he didn't like truly fulfill his promises that he made. Like that's how I personally feel. So I feel like you can be justified, but to expect him to be there for 10, 15 years, I think that like whatever like whenever that expectation comes to that capacity, then like I do think that there is a sense of entitlement as well, right?
Yeah.
So like because I mean the man does have aspirations.
Not to mention his son needs to be. He wants his son to go to the NFL, I'm sure. And this mug needs to be playing against a little bit more. He needs to be experiencing a little bit more competition if he's going to be able to rise to the level that he needs to rise to in order to go to the league. But I'm not upset about him taking his son away. I mean,
but I would say with that though, like, was it fair to ever send your son there in the first place just so you can win games? So like if we're gonna have that conversation, then we gotta have the full conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like my son getting like scholarship offers from the top 5 basketball schools in the country. I tell him that I got this job coaching at Mississippi Valley State. So you're gonna come with me because that's what you're gonna do, and it's gonna help you win games, right?
Nepotism is real, and I usually agree with it if it's in the Black community because you don't get a chance to do it very often. But I definitely get your point as well.
It's like reverse nepotism though, because like usually nepotism benefits everybody. You know what I'm saying? Or it benefits like both parties, like the son and the sometimes. Yeah. But like this only benefited like one party. Like this really didn't benefit. Yeah, this really didn't benefit. Yeah, it really. I mean, it benefited Shedeur because like he was able to get like NIL deals and stuff like that purely because he was at an HBCU and people wanted to seem as if they cared about HBCUs, and maybe they do. Yeah. But yeah, so I feel that way. But like also at the same time, like the money piece is huge, and like and we can't have this conversation without addressing the money piece. Now, HBCUs, most of them are struggling. I think I read like in the next 5 years, like it's assumed that like half of the HBCUs in the country will not be able to exist anymore because the deficit is so large that they operate out of.
Interesting.
They don't have an endowment. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a positive endowment.
That donor, it's based off of alumni donors, right?
Yeah. So like, with that being said, like that's a problem and that's a structural systemic issue that we got to talk about, right? So we can't have this conversation without having that conversation. And I know that everybody would say like, hey, let's just have everybody pull up together some money. Let's have all those Black people pull together some money and then it'll work. Hey, as somebody who just started a nonprofit, I can tell you like everybody's not willing and everybody may not be able in some cases. And you look at like systemically again, like when we talk about wealth and things like that, we have to like acknowledge that like we got one foot to stand on. You wonder why we have stepping, in the words of KP.
There you go.
But with that being said, do you know how many Black billionaires there are in the United States?
I know Robert Smith. I know Diddy. I know used to be Kanye, but let's just say Diddy, Robert Smith.
No, Kanye's still a billionaire.
Okay, well, Kanye. I'm counting on my fingers Jay-Z. Counting on my fingers Beyonce. Nah.
Ooh, I don't think Beyonce's a billionaire, but let me double check.
She might. I don't think she quite that far. I think I'm getting to the end of my list.
Okay. I'm gonna read some names. You said
Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre. I don't know if he still is a billionaire. I don't see him on his list. But this is what I say. The notable names on the list. I see Tyler Perry. And he's like right at the line, like right at $1 billion. I see Jay-Z. I'm just saying notable names. I see Michael Jordan. I see Rihanna. I see Kanye. I see Oprah.
I forgot
Robert Smith, like you said. So yeah. Of those seven people, like most of them did not go to college. What does that mean? That means they don't have like really a college affiliation, which means that like they also like don't really have an affiliation with HBCUs in general. So like when we have this conversation, we got to remember that, and we also have to acknowledge like Deion Sanders went to a PWI. He went to a PWI in Florida State. That is what he knows. That's probably what he's most comfortable with. That's probably what he's most familiar with, and that's going to give him most likely the resources to be successful. We can talk about all this stuff, but we do got to have that conversation, right? We do got to talk about that piece. It's going to give him the tools to be successful. Why is it going to give him the tools to be successful? Because they have the base to do that. They have the resources to do that in the same way that HBCUs do not. And those are structural issues. So until like either the government steps in, either the government's going to step in or billionaires going to step in, which is not likely. Not likely at this point.
Or we, as a Black community, we have to. I mean, I don't think this is probably going to happen, but everybody should be donating to HBCUs if that's what we care about. You know, you can donate. Anybody can donate, but especially if you're an alum of an HBCU, you can't. I just get frustrated when I feel like we're getting on that savior path again, trying to get one person to save a whole system of schools, you know, and that's not fair to me. It's not fair to look Deion to prime to try to save HBCUs if you're not donating money. You're just on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter throwing a fit. You see what I did there? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, throwing a fit. Ha!
I see. That actually is kind of lit. I ain't gonna lie to you. But with that being said, like most universities are like $1 billion underwater. It's not like like most HBCUs or a lot of HBCUs are like billions of dollars underwater. Like that's not something that like collectively all Black people can fix. Like as much as we want it to be, like it's just not right. So like ultimately, like there's
gotta go beyond donations. It's got to be the system fix.
Yeah, it's a system fix. Like if you can bail out farmers and all this stuff all the time, then you can bail out HBCUs. Like let's keep it a buck. Like if you can bail out Ukraine, you can bail out HBCUs. And I have me personally, like I don't really have an issue like with them supporting Ukraine. Like I know some people do. I understand that. But like I don't have the issue with it. But I'd also say like let's make sure our own front yard is clean too while we're doing some of this stuff. So it's just my personal opinion.
We might need to tug on Biden coattails, bro. You know he like to pandle the Black people, right? So he might go ahead and give us like HBCU stimulus or something. You know, you never know.
but at some point there will have to be a serious conversation. Like if we do want to actually have a level playing field, and we don't. Like as a country, we don't. Like that's the not so secretive secret. So that's right. So like this is how it's supposed to be. So like those things aren't going to be fixed by us, unfortunately. And like we can get mad at Deion for leaving and stuff like that. Like I think that he should have done things differently. I think that he should have chosen his words differently. I think that maybe he should have been less committal. I'm an Ole Miss fan. Lane Kiffin is our coach. You can ask Lane a million times, like, are you going to be the coach next year? That man is not going to answer.
He don't answer that.
He says, "Hey, I love being here. Ole Miss saved me." Like, so are you gonna be here? I love being here. Ole Miss saved me, man. There you go. At least with that kind of language, though, like you don't feel like you're toying with and manipulating people.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And like there is like a different type of pride that people from HBCUs have. Shout out to DeMarcus Little. He's been on a podcast before where we talked about HBCUs versus PWIs and whatnot. And he talked about how important it was for him to be able to attend a HBCU so that he can be successful. And like that stuff matters, right? So like there can feel like there's a sense of entitlement if you have unrealistic expectations to Deion. But a lot of those feelings aren't justified just based on the language that people use.
That's right.
When you take PR classes and they tell you to speak, a lot of times you're not saying nothing. Ultimately, you're not saying anything. You're just saying what sounds good. You're cheerleading, all this, so on and so forth. But when you use such strong language, like you do set yourself up for that. Yeah,
I think ultimately to answer your question, I feel like if we right down the middle, I don't think the answer is Prime is or Jackson State is being entitled, or they're justified necessarily fully in either. And it's 50-50 for me. This is this is a really tough situation. But what I do know is that everything's gonna be all right. So everybody chill out.
bro, you have never sounded whiter in your life.
Man, listen. By the way, I gotta throw this out there too. Did you hear Dr. Umar Johnson on the Breakfast Club going in on Deion?
Yeah, but give me a quick recap though. I saw it. I watched it. What exactly did he say?
He said a lot, bro. But
is he actually a doctor, or is he an honorary doctor? In all seriousness,
bro, he said he's got a psychology degree. Nobody knows, bro. He said he got a school he's about to open, but he's been saying that since 2014, bro. Dr. Umar Johnson, I don't have any problem with that man, but he's a very radical person. So he's on the Breakfast Club and he's talking about Deion Sanders he just straight up sold, basically trying to make it seem like he sold his soul out. You know, he left the black people high and dry. Like he, got their hopes up and then let them down. And he's just going in about how Deion did these folks wrong. And, the people interviewing him, Charlemagne, Envy, they're trying to get him to look at it with a little bit more, have a little bit more of a nuanced perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And, I was upset about that because we are very quick as a people, as in the black community, we're very quick to turn men into martyrs. And I think that's so unfair because, bro, people are complex. Situations are complex. Yeah. And it's not always a money grab with everything. You know what I'm saying? I've been looking at the things that Deion did. He did a lot of good in Jackson State. No one can deny that, bro. And he did it from the heart. I mean, he left it all on the field when he was down there. You know what I'm saying? So I get frustrated when we do that. We start to cannibalize each other in that way. You need to listen to that interview, though. You said you did hear it.
No, I saw clips of it. I hadn't seen the whole thing. And by the way, he actually does have a degree in psychology. He has a doctorate in psychology. I looked at it. It's legit. So he is like an actual psychologist, at least degree wise. So
shout out.
I can say that. But I'd also say this, because like I don't want to be misconstrued. I don't want to be heard the wrong way. The first college I ever visited, I was in fourth grade, UAPB. The first college football game I ever visited or went to was Jackson State versus Grambling. So like I've always had like an experience with HBCUs, period. So it is like near and dear to my heart, just because a lot of family and friends do attend and have attended HBCUs, and Jackson State being like the HBCU for my family. Like I do want to say that. And I know like oftentimes like we can just say Christian these terms and just like leave it at that. Comparison is a thief of joy. Comparison is a thief of joy. Anybody can just say that, and like that's supposed to end the whole conversation. But let me say this though, because I think that like when you are not viewed in the same way that everybody else is, institutionally, as an institution, and you look down upon, you have no spotlight, you're usually just not getting any of these things, and you get to be, for lack of a better word, Cinderella for a night. Don't nobody want to don't nobody want to lose them slippers. Don't nobody want to be home at midnight. Point blank period. And it's like these people, like these people feel like they had notoriety, they had their moment to shine. They were able to showcase Jackson State in a positive way, which almost never gets done. And on a national stage, they were able to showcase Jackson State and HBCUs in a positive way. And overnight it was taken away. And they've never had the opportunity before. Right. So like in that, like, I get where y'all coming from, or I don't get where you're coming from, but I try to empathize with where you're coming from.
I can't empathize with that. So like, I think that like, sometimes like maybe Deion should just say, I wish things would have ended differently. And I wish things could have been differently. I wish things structurally could have been differently. But this is the best decision I can make from myself, my family, and my goals. Like that's all you gotta say. Leave God out of it. Don't switch it up. Don't switch it up on like my destination. My calling is not in the destination. Let's not do that. The Lord Jesus appeared at the foot of my bed last night, and he said, "Deion, you are to go to Colorado, my son." And I said, "Lord, are you sure? The people are dependent."
Is this a Herschel Walker impression? I'm not sure what this is. So, but nah, man.
Man.
But nah. But with that being said, though, like I do just like think it's important to like sit back and ask sometimes, like, is this justified or is this entitlement? The chances are, like, 8 times out of 10, when it comes to complex issues, if you actually look at it, then you're gonna find there's nuance. It's not just a straightforward answer. Like because we can't view a straightforward answer on this topic. So I hope that like when you listen, when you consider things, when you and somebody have like a significant disagreement and like one side that you're not familiar with is on a completely different side, then maybe you need to step back and think like, is this justified or is this entitled? And if your first answer is that it's entitled, then like it's probably a you issue. In all honesty.
Agreed. So, and that goes for most disagreements, confrontations, misunderstandings. You definitely need to have empathy, sympathy, and compassion, bro. That's what it's all about. And then once you think about it, you'll find, maybe we're closer to the middle than we are to my side. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's a good moral of the story, bro. I like that.
Yeah, man. But coming down the pike, man, we just want to give you a quick little update. Coming down the pike, man, we got our annual year in review episode. I don't know what the episode actually is going to be called, but if you want to hear about anti-Semitism, if you want to hear about Brittany Griner, if you want to hear about Twitter and Elon, if you want to hear about all the things, if you want to hear about Kanye,
Hitler,
all this stuff, if you want to hear about those topics, then stay tuned. That episode will drop. Let me look at my calendar real quick. That episode will drop December 29th. So be ready for it. It's coming. Be ready for it because we're ready to have this conversation. And I think that before that, we will also do an episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. But before that, we will also do an episode on if you are a Christian, do you have to have a church home? Is it essential? Is it vital to have a church home? So that episode will be scheduled for December 22nd. So also look out for that episode, man. We haven't recorded it yet, but we've talked about it. And I think it's going to be a really good episode. And I think it's going to be insightful.
No doubt, man. We are wrapping up the year, and we do want to go out with some good, strong content. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not on Instagram. I don't know who all over there. Darius is over there.
Who all over
there? Right. But Darius is over there. So if you have anything you would like for us to discuss, just shoot us a little message or something, DM or comment, so we can figure out if we can get that topic on for you. No doubt.
Facts. Make sure you do that. Make sure you DM us. Go ahead, give them the socials.
Social media, yeah. Follow us on Instagram at Unconformed Podcast. Also on YouTube at Unconformed Podcast. What's our
Facebook?
Anchor? No, yeah, Facebook. I wasn't thinking about it, but yeah, Facebook at Unconformed Podcast, and then Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts at Unconformed Podcast, and that's it, right?
Yep, and make sure y'all leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. If you're not done so, go ahead and do that. We greatly appreciate it. I referenced the episode with DeMarcus talking about HBCUs versus PWIs. That is episode 17. Mm-hmm. So if you want to scroll to episode 17, you can listen to the episode, and I think that it'll be insightful. I think it will still be relevant, and I think that it will still be fruitful in a lot of ways that will give you a perspective that maybe you didn't have before listening to this episode.
No doubt.
So for Unconformed Podcast, man, I'm Darius Watkins.
Yep, I'm Ryan Thomas.
And we out.